Hello everyone, and we have been got by the camera again. So here we are into round 7 of this tournament, here together watching two, players that we haven't featured so much in tournaments.
Yeah, two players that are slightly under the radar, let's say.
Yeah, let's say. So we have Emre Sahan and François-Xavier going to be playing up against each other. And I've got a really good memory of playing Francois from a tournament. I think it was back in 2017 format. Can't remember which one it was, but I'm pretty sure we featured a Mega Aggron in that game. And if anyone brings a Mega Aggron to a tournament back then, we can expect to see a really interesting team coming out now.
Well, maybe this was the same tournament, because I also faced Francois running that Mega Aggron as well. I had the pleasure of playing him on stream when I was running that Pikachu back in 2018 as well. Yeah, making use of that Mega Aggron, a really cool Pokemon and a really cool team that came out in that tournament, and I'm hoping for another really cool team coming out from him in this one.
Yeah, exactly, and this is the sort of thing that we get to feature in tournaments like this, especially when more creative players are able to bring themselves up. These players are both 6-0, so far they're undefeated in matches. They may have lost the odd game here and there, but they've managed to pull every single one back, whether that's 2 games or 3 games. They've won the set. So here at 6-0, we're getting towards the final stages of the tournament. Round 7, 2 more rounds to go before we decide which players are going to be making it into that coveted top 16 position and moving on to day 2.
Yeah, so 8 wins is what you need to guarantee your place in that day 2, and these players are just 2 games away, so the winner of this match will be just 1 game away from guaranteeing their spot in the next day of competition.
Yeah, exactly. So these players are getting set up. We're going to be getting ready to jump into the game as soon as we can, but in the meantime, I believe we've seen Emre before a few years ago, back in 2015.
Yeah, he won a regional championship all the way back in 2015, and then it seemed to be quite under the radar since then. Maybe taking a break from Pokemon, maybe not coming to as many tournaments, but already showing that he can win a regional championships back then, and easily could be doing it so again this weekend.
Well, exactly, and if you're looking at the players to watch this weekend, the ones that are going 6-0 so far in the tournament are the ones to keep your eye on. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what these players are going to bring to the game. But before we go on to talk about the players that we're going to be seeing just in this round coming up, what happened in the last round? What did we feature previously?
Yeah, we got to see a very lucky Togekiss, let's say. Getting a lot of critical hits and showing the power of the Super Luck combination with that scope lens that we did see on that Togekiss. Really putting on a good show for Calvin in that last game.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you look at when you're a player, is these secondary effects that come into the game. Obviously, as we all know, you can't rely on them completely to win a game. But when you stack the deck in your favor and you give yourself the opportunity for these things to happen, we saw it previously with Grimmsnarls going up against each other using that Thunder Wave, and that's something that, hey, if a Pokemon's slower, that's great, but if it doesn't move, that's even better.
Yeah, and now we're going to have a look at Emre's team here, and very similar to what we saw in the last round. I believe we may have even seen the same 6 Pokemon coming out from Calvin here, going with that Gothitelle and Dusclops as the 2 Trick Room setters, with that Rhyperior and Torkoal to abuse the Trick Room. So if these are the same 6 Pokemon, could we be seeing another Scope Lens Super Luck Togekiss on this stream?
Well, maybe, and I'd quite like to see it myself, to be honest. That would be super lucky of us to see that 2 rounds in a row.
I'm sorry, I've already got that one.
Oh, you've already got one. Okay, well, I'll take it either way. But as you can see on the screen there, that's Emre getting ready for the match. He's looking pretty calm, actually. As we said, had that regional win in 2015, so not a stranger to competition, but even less of a stranger because he seems to have been playing since 2010.
Yeah, going back quite far here, so definitely going to be an experienced player going up against Francois here, and yeah, going to be seeing a Rain come out for the first time on this stream.
Yeah, it looks, what's better than 1 water Pokemon, 2 water Pokemon? What's better than 2 water Pokemon? Well, it starts to become a little bit water heavy, but hey, why not 4? Let's just use all of the water moves this game. So yeah, definitely going to be seeing some a splash being made, let's say.
Oh, okay. I hadn't done that one yet, so let's let you have that one. So yeah, and it seems to be working out really well for Francois here. He has got that 6-0 record. So yeah, rain, something we haven't seen too common going into the beginning of this format. We have seen the Pelipper. When it got access to that drizzle, it was paired very commonly with the Swift Swimmers, such as the Golduck that we saw back in 2017. But now we've got this new duck available with the Ludicolo being able to be paired with the Pelipper instead. Yeah, exactly. And you've actually got a couple of different modes here. You can go a little bit faster with that Pelipper Ludicolo, but a little bit slower with that Jellicent Gastrodon. So maybe there's something that's being hinted in the way that Francois has trained his Pokemon, built his team to be able to use all of the water moves whenever he wants them. Yeah, so we should be getting into team preview very shortly, and yes, here we go. So we're going to have Emre going with that Dusclops, Gothitelle, Torkoal, Rhyperior, Gyarados, and Togekiss against Francois' Ludicolo, Togekiss, Conkeldurr, Gastrodon, Jellicent, and Pelipper. Yeah, so, well, we've got a very Trick Room-centric team coming out here from Emre, going to be wanting to reverse the speeds and dish out a lot of damage with that Torkoal and Rhyperior, but there's going to be a real interaction here between the two players in that you've got the Torkoal on Emre's side of the field that's going to be setting up the sun, but also you've got the Pelipper on Francois' side of the field going to be setting up the rain most likely. So you've got this situation where both players are going to be opting for their optimal weather. Who gets it is up to these players and how they play the matchup. Yeah, we saw the Vanillux going up against the Torkoal in the previous game, and Vanillux, even though it would be able to counter the weather of the Torkoal, really doesn't want to be facing it even if it's in the hail. But Pelipper, definitely a lot more comfortable facing down that Torkoal, being able to set up the rain or be able to resist the moves coming out from those fire moves. And yeah, some really good trainer cards coming out here from Emre and Francois. So most of these trainers that we've had on this stream have really put effort into their trainer card games going into this tournament. So we're going to be seeing the Togekiss and the Jellicent coming out from Francois, and it's going to be countered by the Gothitelle and the Dusclops from Emre. Yeah, so we've got 3 potential Pokemon that can set up that Trick Room here turn 1, and we've also got a Togekiss. So that's a little bit of the odd one out here. We've got a decision to make on both players. Which Pokemon on Emre's side of the field wants to set up Trick Room? And does Gothitelle use access to something like that Fake Out to allow that Dusclops to do that? But equally, Francois got the option here to use Trick Room himself if he predicts that Trick Room is definitely going up this turn. And Trick Room reverses Trick Room here. So it may be that Francois has an opportunity here to deny Emre the Trick Room, but he has to be careful because he doesn't want to set it up for Emre on his own. He instead wants to be going for that Dazzling Gleam from the Togekiss, followed up by a Surf coming out from this Jellicent. So not opting for that Water Spout as the common spread move from the Jellicent, but very interesting move coming out from the Gothitelle, going for that Hypnosis, not the most accurate move coming out from this Gothitelle, able to land on the Jellicent, and even without that gravity that was set up just now by the Dusclops. Yeah, so not the order that you see those two moves used in most commonly. Normally, people try to set it up so there's gravity on the field before you use that Hypnosis that, as you say, Jamie, is not the most accurate move that exists in Pokemon. So, yeah, a little bit of the wrong way around there, but Emre did manage to land that Hypnosis. That Jellicent on Francois' side of the field isn't going to be able to now set up that Trick Room for Francois to counter Emre's Trick Room. And neither is this Dusclops, as it's going to be switching out for that Rhyperior. So now that the gravity's been set up, it will be able to hit that Togekiss with its ground moves, as the Togekiss is going to be firing back with a Dazzling Gleam. The Jellicent has to take a turn of sleep here thanks to that Hypnosis, and the Gothitelle is going to be the one to set up the Trick Room for Emre. Yeah, so we've had, 2 turns here where, okay, maybe the Jellicent is asleep, but Francois hasn't really taken any damage. It's Emre that's taken all the damage, and in return, yes, he's got the Trick Room up. Maybe he's starting to move into a position where he can use those powerful ground moves under the gravity condition that's been set up already and launch his big ground attacks into anything on Francois' side of the field, as we do see a Dynamax coming out here. Yeah, it's going to be that Rhyperior going for that Dynamax here, so thanks to the gravity, it doesn't have to fear the redirection potential from that Togekiss. It wanted to go for that Max Quake into the Jellicent. It can do so freely and not risk the whiffing it into that Follow Me. But we're going to see the Hypnosis here, thanks to that gravity, is now going to be 100% accurate and going to put that Togekiss to sleep. So Togekiss is going to be taking a nap for this turn, and the Rhyperior is going to be firing off that Max Quake, and we're going to have to see if it's going into that Jellicent or the Togekiss, but it is going to be going into that Jellicent, doing a very nice amount of damage, and also going to be raising the special defense of the Gothitelle and the Rhyperior, and he is facing down 2 special attackers here, so that's going to be a very nice special defense increase, especially as Togekiss isn't even able to move this turn thanks to that Hypnosis.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Pokemon here that use weakness policy where their partners want to self-activate. Not a route that Emre's going down so far, so just being content to launch those Max Quakes into Francois' side of the field, and Francois is just busy taking a nap while Emre's putting out all of this offensive pressure. So Francois is going to have to do something and adjust in this game in order to get around the potential of Hypnosis. That's come out already twice, certainly could be coming out again before if Francois wants to start putting damage on the field.
Yeah, well, he definitely wants to if he's switching in his Torkoal here. It is now under Trick Room, so he wants to be firing off those big eruptions. And Max Quake is going to be fired off by the Rhyperior here, and it's going to be hitting into that Jellicent. It's going to be picking up the knockout on the Jellicent as well, and increasing the special defense of the Torkoal and the Rhyperior. So Rhyperior now at 2 stages of increased special defense is going to be able to really comfortably take those moves that the Togekiss would be able to fire off if it were to wake up, but it does in fact stay asleep instead this turn.
Yeah, so Francois is going to not be under as much pressure from something like Hypnosis coming out to stop him attacking. Instead, he's got to worry about that Torkoal and Rhyperior on the field at the same time, and something that you don't really want to be staring down. We are quite a way through Trick Room now, so there are ways that Francois might be able to neuter the damage that's coming out from both of these Pokemon. Setting up the rain, stopping Torkoal, or stopping Torkoal a little bit in its tracks here is one way to do that. So good switch in there from Francois. But now he's still got to get through the last couple of turns of Trick Room before he can put himself on the offensive.
Yeah, so Rhyperior does still have access to one more turn of Dynamax, and if it were to go for something like that Max Rockfall, it would be able to get rid of the rain and set. It wouldn't be the weather that Torkoal would want, but it would still be not the weather that the Pelipper would want. So maybe we'd be able to go for that Max Rockfall. If there was potential Sash on the Pelipper, then the Sandstorm would be able to break that, but this Eruption is easily able to break any Sashes on that Pelipper. Even with the rain, it's going to do a nice chunk of damage to both Pokemon here, and we are going to see a Max Rockfall come out from the Rhyperior into the Pelipper, and being super effective here, is easily able to pick up the knockout on the Pelipper, and is going to get rid of that rain for that Sandstorm instead. So we're going to have to see if the Togekiss is finally deciding to wake up here and fire off a move into the Torkoal and the Rhyperior, and it is going to be going for a Dazzling Gleam, and thanks to the Max Quake special defense boost, is really not doing much damage at all.
No, certainly not. And you talked about changing that weather away from what the Pelipper wants. It's also more in favour of Torkoal here. So obviously the rain, as we know, does reduce the power of fire-type moves, and the Sandstorm overriding that rain is going to mean that the Torkoal is doing a little bit more damage. Not as much as if it was in Sun, but certainly bringing it back to a more acceptable amount of damage. We see Gastrodon come in here for Francois, and on the last turn of Trick Room now, going to be maybe seeing a Dynamax coming out from the Gastrodon, which we've seen so many times before, maybe trying to launch some Max Quakes of its own, raise its special defense, but also maybe try and remove this Rhyperior from the field.
Yeah, and he does still have to be concerned about the fire moves coming out from the Torkoal here, being able to pick up maybe the knockout on the Togekiss as well, paired with that the Rock Slides now coming out from the Rhyperior. So Francois does really have to rely on his Gastrodon for this endgame, and Torkoal is going to be switching out for Emre instead, going to be switching back in that Gothitelle. And are we going to see the Dynamax coming out from this Gastrodon? We are going to see the Dynamax, probably going to be that Gastrodon, as the Togekiss has been on the field for a while and has chosen not to, so probably going to be that Gastrodon, going for those Max Quakes to raise the special defense, but no, it is actually going to be that Togekiss.
Yeah, so deciding that wanting to try to maybe keep that Togekiss on the field, use the Dynamax form to get through the last turn of Trick Room and then reply back.
Yeah, so Going to see a Protect coming out from this Rhyperior, not wanting to take any moves from this Gastrodon or this Togekiss. We're going to see a Surf coming out from this Gastrodon, I believe. Not a very common move we see too often on the Gastrodon, but Surf going to just leave the Gothitelle on a little bit of HP, so it is going to survive that move, but not this Max Starfall coming out from the Togekiss. Going to easily pick up the knockout on the little HP from the Gothitelle, so the Protect from the Rhyperior kept it safe from the Surf, but now Emre wasn't able to make use of that last turn of Trick Room.
No, he's not, but we do know that he has that Dusclops in the back, and likely that he's going to bring that in now that the Trick Room has expired. Likely to be able to set it up. Dusclops is known for being one of the most bulky Pokemon in the format, able to take so many hits. And we do see that Frisk activate, seeing the Rindo Berry on Gastrodon and the weakness policy on Togekiss.
Yeah, so the Rhyperior does have to be concerned about hitting into this Togekiss. It has Dynamax, but it is a reduced amount of HP, so maybe a Rock move coming out from the Rhyperior would be enough to take out the Togekiss, but if it doesn't, it will activate that weakness policy, and the Rindo Berry as well would come into play if the Torkoal were to go for something like a Solar Beam.
Yeah, and Emre has very wisely conserved his Torkoal for later. Clearly wants to get that Trick Room up again and maybe bring in the Sun to get that Torkoal on the field again.
Yeah, well, the Max Starfall is going to be going into that Rhyperior, and thanks to the increased special defenses, it's able to easily take that, and also take this Surf as well, a 4-time super effective move, not in its Dynamax form as well. The Rhyperior able to survive this move and activate its own weakness policy, and because that weakness policy boost, it's able to take out this Togekiss here.
Yeah, getting the KO on the Togekiss is absolutely huge in this turn. So looks like Emre is going to be able to finish off the turn. There we go, with a Trick Room coming out on that from that Dusclops and getting him back into the position he wants to be.
He's got his Rhyperior with its weakness policy now activated. It's slightly naturally faster than the Gastrodon, so we're going to have to see how the speeds interact with the Rhyperior and the Gastrodon. But like you said, Emre's conserving his Torkoal in the back. When he switches it in, it would have access potentially to that Solar Beam. And even with the Rindo Berry, it would still do a lot of damage. And Gravity is going to make sure that this Rhyperior will be able to hit its ground moves, which in this case is going to be the high horsepower. And with that increased attack, is going to easily knock out this Gastrodon and take the game for Emre.
Yeah, so a really well-played game there from Emre. He was always in the driving seat, making sure he had that Trick Room up, making sure his Pokemon were the fastest they could be, as well as being able to stop his opponent, stop Francois being able to move using that Hypnosis.
Yeah, Hypnosis coming out without the Gravity on the first turn, so it wasn't the most accurate move, but it did hit that Jellicent and it stopped it from potentially reversing the Trick Room that Emre really wanted to go for. So quite an important Hypnosis hit in the beginning, and once the Gravity was set up, then it was able to put the Togekiss to sleep as well, and that did stay asleep for quite a while, so not able to do much for Francois in that game. But yeah, Hypnosis quite tricky for Francois. He doesn't seem to have the best answers for it. Maybe he wants to go for something like a Max Starfall with his Togekiss and set up the Misty Terrain to stop the Hypnosis coming out.
It may be a really good option for him, but unfortunately Togekiss itself that sets up that Max Starfall isn't on the ground, so won't be affected by that Misty Terrain and won't be able to stop any Hypnosis on itself. So he's going to have to decide if that's okay for him, if he thinks that, let's say the Jellicent being protected from something like Hypnosis is worth using the Dynamax really early in the game and having it expire while Trick Room's on the field, and where Emre is really trying to attack and put pressure on.
Yeah, and we did see that he was willing to use his, Francois was willing to use his Togekiss as the Dynamax Pokemon, so that could be an option as well. But yeah, the Jellicent being asleep, not being able to reverse those Trick Rooms was quite important. The Jellicent, if it was able to move, it could fire off something like we saw that it was doing some damage with the Surfs and being able to reverse the speeds with the Trick Room as well. Yeah,
exactly. And going back to that turn 1 Hypnosis, it's worth saying that while it may not have been the most accurate or reliable thing to play, sometimes when you're not under any pressure from your opponent, you can just launch those Hypnosis or any other move into your opponent and see if it works. As we saw, it did, and it put Emre right in the driving seat for the game and made it so that Emre had so much more room to maneuver, especially once he set up that Gravity, could continue with the spreading the Hypnosis, getting that Trick Room up and putting himself into a great position where, hey, if it missed, maybe he still would have been able to, but just maybe a couple of turns later.
Yeah, and if you miss the Hypnosis, the Jellicent maybe doesn't take the sleep turn as early as it would, and once you've set up the gravity, then you can go for the Hypnosis instead. So maybe even if he had missed that Hypnosis, he could have gone for the 100% accurate Hypnosis in the gravity the next turn as the Dusclops was setting up the Trick Room, because we were seeing just dazzling gleams and surfs coming out from the Jellicent and the Togekiss, and it was doing okay damage to the Gothitelle and Dusclops, but both of those Pokemon are known to be quite bulky, so able to take those hits quite well.
Yeah, I think Francois had to be aware that maybe that Rhyperior was coming in, maybe he wanted to carry on doing damage to it early in the game, and make sure that as the Trick Room was being set up, there was pressure against the switch-in, so that maybe Emre had to use more of the Trick Room turns than he wanted to in order to get into that optimal position that he did partway through that game, where he had Torkoal and Rhyperior out on the field, in Trick Room, doing what they absolutely love to do and just attacking in Trick Room.
Yeah, I think I would probably like to see that Gastrodon used a bit more from Francois. That does seem to be a very good answer to both the Torkoal and the Rhyperior. Maybe not after the Rhyperior has boosted its special defense enough to be able to take something like the Surfs, but maybe something like an Earth Power. Even if the Torkoal were to get up the sun, it would be able to do a lot of damage to both the Torkoal and the Rhyperior. Yeah,
and I'd quite like to see if it is that Francois is using using a water move on his Jellicent, it might be an opportunity for him to Dynamax that Pokemon as well. Maybe does detract from stopping the Trick Room on Emre's side of the field, but that weather control is really important, and we saw that there was the sun going on there was sand coming out from the secondary effect of Max Rockfall. Hey, why can't we have some rain set up from Max Geysers as well?
Yeah, and we've seen that Surf was the water move of choice coming out from Francois on both the Jellicent and the Gastrodon. The Gastrodon definitely something you want to surf yourself, activating that Storm Drain, increasing the special attack. So maybe that's something that Francois could consider going into this match. Maybe going for that Surf option to increase the special attack of the Gastrodon, and then maybe using the Gastrodon to Dynamax and power through the Torkoal and the Rhyperior that way.
Yeah, certainly, but also Jellicent does hold the water absorb ability, so it could be that Francois has an option to just keep on hitting that Surf.
Yeah, it does seem to be. So we'll have to see if that is the option that Francois wants to go for going into this game too. And he is going to be leading with that Togekiss and Jellicent once again, like he did in game one. And we're going to see the Gothitelle and Dusclops from Emre again. So just the same four Pokemon coming out in turn one for both players.
Yeah, exactly. And so the question is whether Francois and Emre do anything different this turn. Does Francois have an answer to that Hypnosis turn one? Is he willing to, as you said, Jamie, use the Dynamax and Max Starfall on the Togekiss to stop that first Hypnosis? Or does he decide to play it slightly differently this turn, maybe switch out, maybe opt for some Protects, or maybe try to reverse the Trick Room himself?
Yeah, well, he is going to be Dynamaxing some things. It looks like it's Francois' Pokemon that's going to be Dynamaxing here. Yes, it is. So if it is that Togekiss, then it could be going for that Max Starfall to activate the Misty Terrain on the field. So that might be what Francois is going for, as he is opting to Dynamax the Togekiss here. And we're going to have to see if Emre is going to be going for that turn one Hypnosis again. And it looks like the Max Starfall is going to come out from this Togekiss. So the Jellicent will be safe from any Hypnosis coming out from the Gothitelle here. And the Max Starfall actually doing quite a lot of damage to this Gothitelle. So very good damage coming out onto the Gothitelle here. And are we going to see a Surf coming out from the Jellicent? No, it's going to be a Sludge Wave of all moves. So activating that weakness policy on the Togekiss. So a really nice option coming out from this Jellicent to increase the damage output from this Togekiss. And Hypnosis, like you said, is going to hit into that Togekiss because it is currently off the ground. And a little bit too late there. The gravity is going to put the Togekiss on the ground, and it would have been in the Misty Terrain, but just the turn before, the Hypnosis is going to land with that reduced accuracy onto the Flying type.
Yeah, and that was the correct order that time. So, yeah, good turn there from Emre, but Francois trying to do as much as he can to negate the problem that he had in the previous game and not quite making it. Yeah, interesting seeing that Sludge Wave coming out from Jellicent, and really good for Emre that he's managed to capitalise on the Hypnosis, managed to land it onto the Togekiss and stop that weakness policy coming out and causing a major problem, and really quite free here to now set up that Trick Room, bring his Pokemon, switch out his Gothitelle, as we see here, and bring in some big attackers.
Yeah, probably bringing in one of those potential Trick Room squeakers here in the Torkoal, in this case, setting up the drought for Emre here. And going to see another switch out, so the Dusclops is also going to be switching out both of the Trick Room setters. So no Trick Room is going to be activated on Emre's side here. But are we going to see a Trick Room coming up from Francois? Because Jellicent does have access to that. And yes,
oh my god!
Are. So
yes!
Absolutely fantastic play from Emre here. If he would have gone for the Trick Room with either the Gothitelle or the Dusclops, then Francois would have just reversed it immediately. But now, Francois set up the Trick Room for Emre with both his Trick Room sweepers in.
Yeah, that is absolutely flawless play there from Emre. Seeing it coming, knowing that he has an opportunity to get both of his attackers onto the field. Now he's got them in Trick Room, and he's really got to be worried about what's going to happen here. Can the Rhyperior and Torkoal effectively dispatch the Jellicent before it's able to reverse that Trick Room again? We'll have to see as Torkoal starts off with a Solar Beam.
Yeah, Solar Beam most likely going into that Jellicent, going to be doing some nice super effective damage. And thanks to the sun, the Solar Beam is going to be activated immediately and fire off without that charge turn. And it's going to be doing a very nice chunk of damage to that Jellicent. It's doing a little bit over half, as Rhyperior is going to be firing back with a Rock Slide and is not quite going to be able to pick up the knockout on that Jellicent. Togekiss is going to remain asleep, and Jellicent does decide here to reverse the Trick Room that it set the last turn.
Yeah, so interesting that Emre decided not to go for the Dynamax that turn. Make sure that the KO came out onto the Jellicent, stopping the Jellicent, reversing that Trick Room there. So a real step into the game that Francois has got back, and he's got an opportunity now. Maybe if that Togekiss, since it's been asleep for a little while, is able to wake up, start dishing out damage with that weakness policy boosted moves, we're going to see a completely different game here.
Yeah, and Francois also has that probable Pelipper in the back as well to be able to negate the drought on the Torkoal. So if he were to switch out the Jellicent here, and it would really reduce the damage coming out from the Torkoal as well. He could also sacrifice the boost on his Togekiss to bring in the Pelipper and maybe go for a Surf that would hit both the Torkoal and the Rhyperior, but it is going to be the Jellicent instead switching out. And are we going to see that Pelipper? No, it's going to be the Gastrodon switch in here instead, so not going to be getting rid of the drought here from the Torkoal, and the Torkoal is going to be switching out instead into the Dusclops and is going to be frisking the Rindo Berry again onto the Gastrodon like we've seen, and since the weakness policy is gone on the Togekiss, there's nothing to frisk there, but going to be the Dynamax coming out from Emre instead this time, so this will be the Rhyperior going for that Dynamax and going to be able to fire off those Max Quakes again to boost its special defense against this Gastrodon.
Yeah, and we're still in Gravity here. We could see a Max Quake going into the Togekiss, making sure it gets the KO on that.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what this Rhyperior is going for. Togekiss, it looks like it's going to stay asleep for the maximum amount of time it can, and Max Rockfall is going to be fired off by this Rhyperior into the Gastrodon.
Ooh.
So really nice switch in by the Gastrodon here, but still taking a lot of damage from that Max Rockfall. Going to be setting up the sand here instead of the rain here instead, and going to do a little bit of damage with the Sandstorm onto the Togekiss and the Dusclops. So still quite a nice position here for the Rhyperior.
Yeah, it's still quite a nice position, as you say, and also, you know, you've got the Trick Room setter and Dusclops on the field for Emre, but not for Francois this time. So Emre going to be fairly free to maybe max guard with his Rhyperior, set up that Trick Room, get himself back into that board state that he really wants to be in, but no, it just switches out instead.
No, so going to be no Trick Room here from Emre's side of the field. Instead, going to be sending that Torkoal back in, setting up the sun again with the drought, so getting rid of the sand that was just set the turn before, and Togekiss is finally going to wake up here, going to be firing off the Air Slash into the Torkoal. Going to be doing some very nice damage thanks to that weakness policy boost that it got very near the beginning of the game, followed up by the Earth Power from the Gastrodon, is able to knock out this Torkoal here. So Torkoal not going to be able to be in Trick Room and fire off its eruptions anymore. Max Quake is going to be fired off by the Rhyperior though into the Gastrodon, and is it enough to pick up the knockout? Yes, it is. So Gastrodon is going to be KO'd here, so we've lost the Torkoal on Emre's side, one of his main Trick Room sweepers, and Gastrodon has been lost for Francois, one of his main answers to the Rhyperior.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got this wonderful position where Emre correctly predicted that the Dusclops was going to be under threat no one wants to be on the other side of a Togekiss Air Slash, so wanting to make sure that he wasn't taking too much damage with that Dusclops, removing it and saying, Torkoal's done enough work this game setting up the Sun, and then coming back into the field. So now it's not so worthwhile. I'm going to make sure that Dusclops is there, ready to set up Trick Room when I want to later in the game. Francois has got access to both of his Pokemon now. Everything's now not taking a nap anymore, so going to be able to fire off some big attacks, and we saw exactly how much that Air Slash did to the Togekiss. So maybe a combination of Dazzling Gleams coming out here, and some moves from the Jellicent to make sure that Gothitelle doesn't set up that Trick Room, or maybe he wants to start attacking that Rhyperior.
Yeah, so we're going to see instead a Fake Out coming out from the Gothitelle, not wanting to let the Togekiss go for an attack here, and Will-O-Wisp is going to connect with this Rhyperior, so going to be burning the Rhyperior here, cutting its attack in half, and this Max Quake will now be doing slightly less damage than it would have done before, but still enough to knock out that Jellicent that was left on such low HP near at the beginning of the game, and giving another special defense boost to the Gothitelle and the Rhyperior here.
Yeah, and the question is can... with only Togekiss on the field, can Francois come back from this? Is he able to use that boosted Togekiss to enough of an effect to... in combination with the Pelipper, sorry, I completely lost track of the amount of Pokemon there. Pelipper is going to change exactly what I was about to say there. That's the way you deal with Rhyperior. Get a Pelipper on the field and get into rain.
Yeah, and he's also knocked out the Torkoal as well, so no potential Sun anymore on Emre's side of the field. Francois will have the rain, especially now the Rhyperior has lost its Dynamax. It can't go for any Max Rock Falls to set up the sand instead.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to see that Rhyperior under so much pressure, as well as the Gothitelle. So the question is Emre able to maneuver himself into a position where he's got that Dusclops, maybe he can set up the Trick Room and then start doing something, but that's going to be really difficult now that the Rhyperior is burnt for Emre to do enough damage to close out the game.
Yeah, and the Gothitelle's at such low HP, it could very easily be knocked out from the Pelipper or the Pelipper or the Togekiss coming out from Francois' side. So once again, the water move of choice for Francois is that Surf again on the Pelipper. So Surf is going to be hitting that Gothitelle and is going to be picking up the knockout. So he is going to be attacking his Togekiss a little bit as well for some damage, but would have knocked out the Rhyperior if it didn't protect as well from this Dazzling Gleam that came out from the Togekiss.
Well, the big question here is whether Togekiss carries Protect. We saw the Pelipper go before the Togekiss, and so if Francois wants to be able to deal with the Rhyperior, he's going to have to use those water moves. If Francois doesn't have access to another water move with his Pelipper, he's going to have to knock out his own Togekiss in order to knock out the Rhyperior, and then the question becomes, does Pelipper have enough in the tank to be able to deal with Dusclops?
Yeah, Dusclops not known to be the most offensive Pokemon though, usually carrying something like a Nightshade to be able to do damage that would be consistent damage, but then if it is only carrying something like the Bulldoze that we see so often paired with Rhyperior, if that is the only attacking move that the Dusclops would have, it wouldn't be able to attack the Pelipper, and then Pelipper would just be able to slowly chip away at it. So maybe the Rhyperior wants to go for a double protect here from this potential Surf.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any reason for Emre not to try, but unfortunately he fails on this occasion.
Yeah, so the Surf is going to be hitting that Rhyperior and the Togekiss on Francois' side of the field as well, and it looks like the Rhyperior is actually able to survive another Surf in this game as well, thanks to the special defense boost again it got from those Max Quakes, activating the weakness policy once again, and Trick Room is going to be set up by that Dusclops.
Yeah, so you're seeing exactly why Rhyperior is used in this format. Managing to survive the turn on just a sliver of health, but Pelipper has the option here to just protect itself, not take any more damage from the Rhyperior. Maybe lose it. That Rhyperior is going to be fainting to burn at the end of the turn, but there is an opportunity if Emre is carrying it for maybe a cheeky little pain split to keep that Rhyperior on the field.
Yeah, if the Pelipper does carry Protect here, it will be able to stall out the Rhyperior's burn, and then it will come down to the offensive moveset of this Dusclops. If it only has access to Pain Split and Bulldoze, that wouldn't be enough. The Pelipper would be able to knock it out. So it does need to carry something like that Nightshade to be able to knock out that Pelipper. And it does indeed carry Protect, so it is able to stall out this last turn from the Rhyperior, as the Dusclops is going to be setting that gravity.
Yes.
So the Rock Slide is going to be hitting into that Protect, so not going to be able to knock out the Pelipper here. But the Burn is going to be enough to knock out the Rhyperior. Yeah,
and we're left with the Dusclops versus Pelipper endgame. Not one that we commonly get to, but hey, this is VGC at the end of the day in a new format. So really, really happy to see something slightly different in this tournament. We'll see if it is that Bulldoze coming out from Dusclops, now affected by the gravity, will be able to hit Pelipper. But I think Pelipper's got the advantage of both how much HP it's got left, as well as the amount of damage it's going to be able to do.
Yeah, and we're seeing the players take quite a lot of time to decide their moves. We are down to, I think, less than 3 minutes left of the game time, so maybe that's what some of the players might be wanting to go for now. If the Dusclops doesn't carry any offensive pressure moves to be able to hit the Pelipper, maybe that is what Emre is going for, maybe some kind of timer win, even though the Pelipper is carrying a lot more HP, and it's going to be that Bulldoze, so thanks to the gravity it is going to be hitting the Pelipper, but really not that much damage. Dusclops not known to be an offensive Pokemon in the slightest, and Pelipper going to be fired back with a single target now, Rain Boosted Surf, and going to be doing a lot of damage to this Dusclops, easily in range for another one.
Yeah, exactly, and there's not too many moves that Dusclops has access to that it commonly runs that would be able to deal with this Pelipper now, and Emre knows that. We see the forfeit come out, and that's game 2 to Francois.
Yeah, you never want to be left with Dusclops as your final Pokemon to pick up those knockouts. So he lost his Torkoal quite easily on the switch in. Instead, he could have maybe gone for the Trick Room with the Dusclops that turn. If he didn't flinch and was able to survive the Air Slash that would have gone into that Dusclops, maybe he'd have been able to set up the Trick Room that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really been the story of the game, was Emre not being so confident with actually setting up the Trick Room. We saw it work really well for him on that turn where he brought the Torkoal and the Rhyperior onto the field. But unfortunately, all of the advantage that he gained by letting Francois set up Trick Room for him all petered out once that Jellicent didn't go down to the combination of moves that came out next.
Yeah, if the Jellicent would have been KO'd that turn, it would have put Emre in a fantastic position to be able to really sweep through with the Torkoal and the Rhyperior, but being able to reverse the Trick Room again, really good for Francois coming out here. He did go for that Max Starfall to try and block the Hypnosis, but Emre did manage to pick correctly the target in the Togekiss with that Hypnosis.
Yeah, exactly. So, here is going to be a little bit of a mind game to see what each player decides to bring to this last game. I don't see a reason for Emre to switch things up. I really like that Gothitelle Dusclops lead, the ability to fake out, the ability to Hypnosis, the ability to frisk his opponent. We still haven't seen all of the items on Francois' team, so really like that as a solid, consistent, stable lead for Emre. Francois, I think, does have to go back to the drawing board, because that Hypnosis is really difficult for him to deal with.
Yeah, he identified the Max Starfall would block the Hypnosis, but like we said, the Togekiss off the ground initially, and Hypnosis is 2 for 2 now at the moment in these turn 1s. Still not the most accurate without that gravity, but Emre has been quite accurate so far, so we'll have to see if he's going to be accurate again going into this turn 1 of game 3, if that is what he decides to go for. And it looks like there's no switch up from Francois again. Once again going for that Togekiss and Jellicent, but there is a slight change coming out from Emre here with that Gothitelle and Togekiss.
Yeah, so Togekiss coming out here is a big change for Emre. So we'll see if Gothitelle does have access to that Trick Room. We haven't seen it yet so far, but maybe he's been holding that back from us to play some mind games, maybe get a surprise Trick Room up later in the game. No switch up here from Francois, and looks like he's going to be Dynamaxing straight away.
Yeah, maybe once again Dynamaxing that Togekiss to go for a Max Starfall to set the Misty Terrain. And it does look like it is going to be the Togekiss for Francois, so that might be what he's going for in this game. We'll have to see if the Gothitelle is going to be going for that Hypnosis into the Togekiss again, if it wants to roll the dice, as it were, with that Hypnosis once again. Nasty Plot is going to be the move of choice instead, though, on the Togekiss on Emre's side. So very interesting move choice coming out from the Togekiss on Emre's side, but the Togekiss from Francois is going to be firing back a Max Starfall into the Togekiss, and it's going to be setting that Misty Terrain once again, so the Jellicent will be safe from any Hypnosis that the Gothitelle wants to go for this turn. And it's going to be a Sludge Wave again coming out from the Jellicent, activating the weakness policy on his own Togekiss, and going to be powering up with the attack stages +2 and also the special attack. And the Gothitelle is going for Hypnosis, and once again, 3 for 3 this time with the Hypnosis that isn't the most accurate.
I tell you what, Emre really needs to teach me how to hit those Hypnosis. I think I would have done it better in a few more tournaments if I was able to hit Hypnosis like that. Well, here we've got a repeat again of a similar sort of situation where Emre really knows what's coming here with that Max Starfall, but we're seeing that Emre's deciding now to try and set up his Togekiss. We did see it move before Togekiss on Francois' side of the field, so going to be able to launch out some Dazzling Gleams, maybe some Air Slashes into Francois' side of the field before Francois is able to move. So we'll see if that impacts the game. Likely to be able to do a little bit as Gothitelle switches out.
Yeah, Gothitelle going to be switching out here into the Gyarados, so another switch up from Emre. He hadn't brought this Gyarados to Game 1 or Game 2 as well, so really switching up his game plan going into this Game 3 and going to be intimidating both the Togekiss and the Jellicent, as the Togekiss with its increased stages of special attack, thanks to that nice plot, is going to fire off the Dazzling Gleam, doing some nice damage. The Togekiss on Francois' side is going to stay asleep, and Jellicent is able to pick up that KO on Emre's Togekiss with that Sludge Wave.
Yeah, and it looks like Francois was worried that Rhyperior was going to switch in again in a similar way to that Emre did in the last turn, tried to take advantage of Jellicent having Trick Room on the field and wanting to reverse Emre's Trick Room. So using that Sludge Wave, which is super effective against Togekiss and taking a little bit more damage, but to mitigate the risk of activating a weakness policy on Emre's side of the field.
Yeah, so the weakness policy is activated on Francois' Togekiss here. It is going to be doing some nice damage if it wants to wake up this time. It stayed asleep for a lot of turns in Game 1 and a lot of turns in Game 2, so we'll have to see how sleepy the Togekiss is going to be going into these future turns. But the Gothitelle coming back in doesn't really want to be setting up the Trick Room here with the Gyarados on the field. A much faster Pokemon than the Rhyperior and the Torkoal he's had before. Yeah,
and it looks like Emre is going for a completely different mode. We saw earlier in the tournament Gyarados gets access to that Max Overgrowth, so that may be a route that Emre's going down in this game. Make sure the Togekiss is asleep, make sure that's out of the way, and then try to target down this Jellicent.
Yeah, maybe targeting down this Jellicent with this Dynamax Pokemon that Emre is going for. Probably going to be that Gyarados, and yes, going to be that Gyarados Dynamaxing here, now having access to that potential Max Overgrowth going into the Jellicent, and also the Max Geysers to potentially set up the rain for the Gyarados. And are we going to see the Togekiss wake up here on this turn? Max Overgrowth is going to come out from the Gyarados, firing off into that Jellicent, and should be enough to pick up the knockout on the Jellicent, so no more Sludge Waves going to be coming out from the Jellicent, and going to be activating the Grassy Terrain instead of the Misty Terrain. So now Hypnosis can be active again on the grounded Pokemon. So we're going to have to see what the Gothitelle is going to be going for. We're going to see some Life Orb on the Gyarados. So we're going to be doing slightly more damage than normal, and Togekiss is still feeling sleepy and is going to remain asleep. But the Gothitelle did fire off a Hypnosis into the Togekiss, so if it were to wake up, it could have gone back to sleep.
It could have done, and also covering the switch there, changing the terrain, bringing that Misty Terrain off the field is really important. And Emre's got to be really careful about Storm Drain in the back here. That Gastrodon we've seen in previous games is possibly lurking for Francois, and so, you know, Max Geyser isn't going to be the most consistent option that the Gyarados has on Emre's side of the field. Opting instead to take advantage of the fact that Francois has so many water-type Pokemon and say, hey, look, I'm just going to use all of my grass coverage and do as much damage as I can.
Yeah, Gastrodon is normally a very good switch in to absorb those water moves, but of course, Gyarados has already shown that it is the Max Overgrowth, and if he has managed to call something like the Gastrodon switch in and go for the Max Overgrowth into that slot, that could be very detrimental for that Gastrodon. We have seen that it was the Rindo Berry thanks to the Frisk from the Dusclops, so it would be able to take the Max Overgrowth potentially, even though it would be the super effective hits, but no Gastrodon switch in, and this Gyarados is not afraid of it in the slightest, going for that Max Geyser into the Togekiss, and thanks to the Rain Boost, it is going to be knocking out this Togekiss. So going to see some more Life Orb recall coming out from the Gyarados. Tailwind's going to be set from the Pelipper, so going to be increasing the speeds on Francois' side of the field with that Tailwind. And Brick Break is coming out from the Gothitelle here.
Yeah.
Wow, what an unusual move choice.
Well, and when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Gothitelle isn't a Pokemon that we know that does lots of damage. So what else is it going to do? It's going to support Emre's team. And one of the ways to do that is making sure something like Grimmsnarl that we've seen earlier, setting up those reflects and light screens or anything else similar, isn't going to be able to keep the screens up. So Brick Break, a really interesting move and actually a really clever way to play the game. Yeah,
and we've also seen the weakness policy on the Rhyperior, so Gothitelle not having access to that Bulldoze, it seems to have found another way to activate that weakness policy thanks to that Brick Break as well. And of course the Gastrodon now coming in, couldn't switch in thanks to that Shadow Tag from the Gothitelle, so no calling the Gastrodon switch-ins with those Max Overgrowths, but now having access to the Max Overgrowth once again, now the Gastrodon is on the field. We're going to be seeing the Surf coming out from the Pelipper, going to be activating the Storm Drain on the Gastrodon, increasing its special attack by one stage, and it is going to be a Max Overgrowth into the Gastrodon, and thanks to that Rindo Berry, it may be able to take this. We're going to have to see how this Gastrodon has been trained, if it is able to survive this Max Overgrowth, but no, it is not able to survive, even with the Rindo Berry reducing the damage coming out from that super effective Max Overgrowth, probably thanks to that Life Orb that we've seen on the Gyarados, able to pick up the knockout on that Gastrodon, and thanks to the Tailwind being set from the Pelipper, Gothitelle feeling free to set up the Trick Room here.
Yeah, and get really into the last stages of the turn. Gyarados going back to its normal form, and it's going to be difficult now for this Pelipper to really do anything.
Yeah, the Pelipper, thanks to its own Tailwind, is going to be the fastest Pokemon on the field, and the Gyarados here will probably be able to outdamage it even if the Pelipper was moving first. You've seen the Power Whips, just needs to connect them. Not the most accurate move, but you're not going to get the grassy terrain boost because it is off the ground at the moment. But Power Whip is still going to be doing a lot of damage to this Pelipper.
It is, and you've still got Brick Break. That's eventually going to do the job, as we see Pelipper just protecting from the Hypnosis there. So yet another way for Emre to move on to the front foot. Francois doing what he can, right? What does he need to do to have a chance in this game? Well, he needs to be out of Trick Room, right? How do you do that? You waste turns, and protecting is the way to do that.
Yeah, and he's got to stall out his own Tailwind as well, so potentially putting him slower than the Gyarados. Gyarados does naturally outspeed the Pelipper, but you tend to run Pelipper quite fast on these kind of teams, and because this is such a Trick Room-oriented team, maybe the Gyarados is run slightly slower, so we'll have to see if when the Tailwind runs out, who's going to be faster between the Pelipper and the Gyarados. But then the Pelipper also has to dodge the Hypnosis that's coming out from the Gothitelle.
Oh, and we see a double protect coming out here, so yet another turn in Francois' favour. I think the other thing that we've got to be looking out for, if the Pelipper is able to get through these turns, is the ability for Hurricane to get that confusion. A move that Pelipper usually runs, and a move that does give the odds in favour of, or a little bit more in favour, should I say, of Francois. The big question is now, what's in the back for Emre?
Yeah, if it's that Torkoal, it would be able to reset the rain and going for the Drought instead. But then it still wouldn't be doing so much damage to the Pelipper because it is going to be resisting the Fire moves. But then the Rhyperior would be doing the super effective damage, but also threatened by the Surf from the Pelipper. And Hypnosis here is going to connect once again. Emre really doesn't need that gravity. The Gothitelle is going to be really accurate for him, connecting with that Hypnosis, and the Pelipper is going to take its Sleep turn. And Waterfall is going to fire off into the Pelipper. So now we do see that the Pelipper does underspeed the Gyarados here. So moving first in the Trick Room, as it did try to move before that Gyarados, but can't move if you're asleep.
No, you can't. And yeah, round 7 is not the best time to take a nap, as it turns out for Francois. Still a couple more rounds to go, and you've got to keep that energy going for the rest of the tournament to make sure you're into that top cut. We see Gothitelle coming in with the Brick Break. The Pelipper is yet still asleep, and Gyarados going to be coming out with this Waterfall, not likely to pick up the KO. The Pelipper surviving on just 3 hit points here as we go into probably the last turn of the game.
Yeah, and I really want to see the Brick Break pick up this knockout. We've seen that it can do 3 damage,
No!
but the Trick Room had run out instead, so it is going to be the Gyarados picking up the KO on the Pelipper instead and taking the game for Emre.
Yeah, a really well played set by both players there, and I really enjoyed how backwards and forwards it was, even though it looked like maybe in game 2 that Emre could have really run away with the game. Francois managed to find a way to pull it back, to have that Jellicent survive those 2 big attacks and reverse the Trick Room that he set up for Emre originally. Now we're into game 3, and it was maybe not as close as it could have been, but a really enjoyable game.
Yeah, and we saw Emre switch up his game plan going into the game 3, even though it seemed like the Trick Room mode with the Torkoal and the Rhyperior, it seemed to be the way to go. But
yeah.
Tokias and Gyarados coming out here, probably not what Francois was expecting at all, and really coming in strong for Emre.
Yeah, exactly, and I suppose this is one of the really great things about how we pick our teams in Pokemon. The fact that we only pick 4 Pokemon out of our 6 means that we can prepare for these tournaments with different modes. We can play fast modes, we can play slow modes, we can play something in the middle. Maybe we're all 6 Pokemon are trying to do the same thing. It's absolutely up to us in the preparation that we do for these tournaments. So really good to see that comes through in this round, and Emre was able to use both modes of his team to great effect.
Yeah, we saw some really cool moves coming out from both sides of the field. We saw the Sludge Wave on the Jellicent to activate the weakness policy. We saw the Brick Break of all moves coming out from the Gothitelle.
Yeah.
Probably to activate a weakness policy as well, but instead we were seeing it do some nice, tiny chip damage to that Pelipper.
It broke the sash.
It
broke the sash.
It did break the sash indeed. So,
yeah.
So we'll be cutting to a break, and we'll be coming back shortly with the winner's interview with Emre, so stay tuned.
Hello everyone, welcome back. We are joined here by the winner from the last round, Emre Sahan. Congratulations on the win and going 7-0 so far in this tournament. A really great achievement. And really want to start by saying, how are you feeling for getting into Top Cut now that it's quite likely that you'll be able to maybe get that X1, XO record that everybody's after today?
Yeah, well, I'm feeling pretty confident. Honestly, I think today is my day because I hit so many hypnosis, as you guys probably have saw. But yeah, what should I say?
Sometimes you've got to hit the hypnosis button and hope it works. So
just go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And you did go for it. I mean, game 1, you went into that Jellicent. Game 2, you were able, and game 3, you were able to launch that hypnosis into the Togekiss and make sure, even if it was going to set up that max Starfall and Misty Terrain that came with it, you were able to put something to sleep.
Exactly, because it's flying.
Yeah, exactly that.
It's not affected by Misty Terrain.
Yeah, so really good play there, but I want to talk a little bit about your team and some of the decisions that you made. I don't want to make you reveal too much information, especially at this stage of the tournament, but you did have 2 very distinctive modes, and we saw you take the slower mode with that Torkoal and Rhyperior trying to dish out damage, but also changing it up in game 3 and bringing that Gyarados and Togekiss.
Yeah, well, originally Gyarados and Togekiss was not, well, I didn't wait to play against such a heavy rain team. Originally it was planned for Gastrodon and Mudstay.
Yeah.
Because these 2 are pretty dangerous against Torkoal and Rhyperior. But in game 3 I noticed Gyarados is also probably going to work much better than Rhyperior, so I brought it.
Yeah, and it did so much work. That max overgrowth made such a difference to the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good stuff there.
It's life orbed. Well,
yeah.
So people play Rindo Berry and Gastrodon, and life orb just KOs it.
Yeah, and that's exactly
useless.
What we saw in the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, really good team building decisions there. Talking about another team building decision, I want to talk about Brick Raker on Gothitelle and why you chose to put that on the team.
Well, I have to say it's not originally my team. I saw it on Showdown.
Okay.
From Hamstermania. He's also. I saw it on the internet.
Yep.
And decided to play it. Some games it went pretty good, so I decided to play it today.
Yeah.
And it was a good decision.
Yeah, it's certainly turning out to be a great decision. For those of you who don't know at home, Hamstermania is David Kutesh, who is also, I think, doing quite well in this tournament. So maybe we'll see him over the next few rounds, maybe even coming back tomorrow. So going back to the game 2 was a little bit of a roller coaster with Trick Room being set up by Francois and then quickly removed from the field again. How did you feel when that Jellicent survived those 2 attacks from Torkoal and Rhyperior?
I made a really big misplay that turn because I don't know why, it was a misplay. I didn't Dynamax the Rhyperior to KO the Jellicent to prevent it from reversing Trick Room. So that was my fault. It was just a bad play.
Yeah, but it looked like you were really going for it there, and actually the turn before, which was really great, where you managed to bring the Torkoal and Rhyperior in as Jellicent set up the Trick Room, was such a great move.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit unfortunate that didn't pay off for you in that game, but a really good play nonetheless. So have you got any advice for anyone maybe at home that's looking to play the game as to maybe how to find these players that have really good teams and how to take advice from other players?
Well, if you want to play the game, just play it. What should I say?
Yeah,
try it, buy the games, build some teams, try it with your favorite mons. Maybe it works.
Have you used a lot of those rental teams as well that we've been seeing around?
I used quite a few from Japanese players. Yeah. Like Exodril, Togekiss, the common core with Dragapult, like the common mons.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to play something common.
No, something slightly different going into this tournament.
Yeah.
Well, guys, great interview from Emre here. seeing some good insight into how to get into VGC and how to really take inspiration from other players as well. We're going to cut to a short break here, but we will be back very soon for round 8 of this tournament.